these events involve real people and real places.
Why are you here?
Do you want to know what made me politically active?
Yeah, go on.
As a 5-year-old, the last time we had a Conservative government up in the North East, I watched my dad and my family ripped to shreds by the last Tory government. When Thatcher decided to shut the steelworks down up in the North East, I went on my first protest march with my dad at 5-year-old to try and save his job. The whole town where I lived was made unemployed virtually. My mum had a nervous breakdown because of it, got put into a psychiatric unit. I got took into care as a 5-year-old kid because my dad couldn't cope.
Prior to this thing springing up, you were
I
homeless?
used to live up on Stokes Croft and drink 3 bottles of rum a day, yeah.
Right.
So I managed to get off that and off Stokes Croft.
Right.
What brought me here is the culmination of 20 years as a New Age traveller, and also what brought me here is it's about time we had some change. You know, this, like it says on there, is completely unsustainable. I've got 3 children, and I don't want to be remembered. I don't need anything except to know within myself that, you know, at least I was there. Not the beginning of the end, but the end of the beginning.
Yeah, I'm good.
You good?
Yeah. I'm a single mum from St Paul's in Bristol. I have 2 kids and I've come down here on the days off with my children at nursery, kind of show solidarity. I brought some gloves down and chocolate brownies for everyone. Because it's cold and people need to be warmed up, and I think it's a bit of a thankless task what the guys are doing down here for the last 3 weeks. It's freezing cold, you know,
It is.
and every little bit of support and help is really, really appreciated. I was really impressed and really surprised on Friday. I came down here as a no one. I sat down here for about 3 hours, chatted to loads and loads of people, and it was just a really nice community feel.
But what's it all about?
What is it all about? I don't know. What is it all about? I started off watching the Occupy Wall Street, and I've been thinking something had to happen since the bonuses and the bank takeover. Well, with the banks being taken over and bailed out by us, and then obviously 6 months down the line they all got bonuses and we still had cuts. I was a bit confused, to be honest with you.
We all were.
Yeah, and I just think it's not fair. Sorry, my child's education is not for sale.
It was the banks that broke the camel's back, especially their attitude as soon as they'd done it. Oh, we don't deserve to apologise for anything, you know. It's like, well, give me a break. You know, your kid's still going to £160,000 a term bloody schools and all this shit, and, you know. And here are we, I can't even afford to buy 3 tins of beans at 17 pence now. I've got to decide on beans or electricity, you know. Well, as a homeless person, beans or rum, that's it.
This is Occupy Bristol. It went up the same day as Occupy London Stock Exchange, and it's the biggest Occupy camp outside London, which is probably no accident. Bristol is a city which has still got a thriving sort of left-green subculture, and what's happening here reflects that. It's different from what's going on in London in a couple of important ways. First of all, it's not directly facing off with big finance, and second, probably because it's happening outside London, it's not going on in the full glare of the world's media. But like Occupy protests across the world, it's opening up space in a city for people to talk about things that you don't hear people discussing very much in most cities of a Monday afternoon.
Do markets give people what people want, or do they tell people what they're going to give them?
The markets will what they want you to buy. They project an image of, like you said, this is the best moment of my life. This will make you happy. Like,
How many people got iPhones? How many people got iPods? And why have you got? We invented this great thing. Now we got to think about what we're going to do with it.
And also how we're going to make it fairly without it being produced by Chinese children in Shenzhen. Yeah.
Well, my daughter, when she was 12, we sat there one day and she was looking through these magazines, and I was trying to explain to her that what you're seeing there isn't real.
yeah.
And at sort of like 15, she was looking for anti-wrinkle creams.
So you talked about the 80s. Now, there was no Occupy movement in the 80s. There was a lot of protest marches. There was the miners' strike and all of that. I mean, do you think it might be the case to some extent that whatever the problems were in the 80s, we didn't get to grips with them, and that's why you're here now?
Yeah. I think, I mean, like you say, the protest marches and stuff like that, I've engaged in a lot of protest marches, and it's like we come together, we get that real power of collective conscience when we come together, we talk, we make new contacts, we march around and we get empowered, but we go home. We go back to watching Match of the Day and just nothing gets done. And this is it, it's almost expected. It's like, all right, let them have their little march and, you know what I mean, that'll be all right. But I tell you what, this is different. It's like we've come out and we said we're not bloody going home.
Night has fallen, and compared to earlier today, there are quite a few new faces.
People are coming down here and they'll say really often, I don't really know anything about politics. But they have a perfectly coherent conversation with you about things that are wrong with, their workplace, the cuts, things that are happening in the world. They've got a perfectly coherent view of the kind of world that they would like to see. It's just that they don't think of that as politics. And after spending kind of 3 weeks down here, I went home the other day and watched the news for the first time in weeks, and it really just struck me how all these politicians on the telly were talking about real minutiae of kind of who said what, and the politicians are not talking about the actual real big questions that people are talking about here,
But then the question is, okay, well, that's great, and you raise people's consciousness and you introduce people to each other like that. But there's still this nagging question in my head anyway, which is, right, and then, if all goes according to plan, then what happens? What's step 2?
But then that should surely be, like, as more people get involved, that's something that I think is going to kind of evolve from it. I mean, like I said before, it's not up for us to have...
Have you got time?
Well, that's...
I mean, the world and its wife is fascinated by this, right? Things are getting worse at speed. In both senses, there is some urgency here. I mean, you can't talk forever.
Why are we expected to have more coherent politics in the political parties, though? We've been here for 3 weeks. In the context of, say, 200 years of capitalism, I think taking 3 weeks to develop a sophisticated analysis is not unreasonable.
If we move forward too quickly, then we're in danger of isolating ourselves before the understanding has shifted.
Half of me supports it, half of me thinks, what are they doing there? I agree with that capitalism is not a viable solution anymore. I don't know what is, I'm afraid, so I'm stumped. Basically.
That's exactly what they're talking about, though. They sit around every night going, well, what is this? Where are we? What do you think it would take to get you protesting about the way that society's being run at the moment?
I mean, my income's gone down by 25% since it all started, all kicked off. But am I prepared to do that? No, I'm still fairly comfortably off.
Right.
I'm old enough to remember the 3-day week, and we haven't reached that stage yet.
Can't even get a job in a coffee shop, or a little high street shop for sort of 3 or 4 hours a day.
Grim, isn't it?
It is grim. It is extremely grim.
I mean, considering the fact that the number of people, and there are probably thousands, probably millions of people that are complaining about this sort of thing, look at the number of people who are here, and it's hardly anything compared to society.
Yeah.
Compared to the number of people. So there's probably a huge number of people just like me that have a feeling about it but won't do anything.
You've been out talking to the public, right?
Yeah.
How has it gone?
All right. I think it's been all right. I mean, we've had a lot of people coming up supporting what we're doing. People who still don't know what we're doing, but then telling them why we're here, and they're like, yeah, I agree with that. A few people have said nothing's going to change. You know what I mean? And it's like, and again, I mentioned about this before. It isn't apathy. It's hopelessness. You know, it's like, because people have tried to change things, but this is it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this is Camp Hope, man. But here, we've got a responsibility to the people of Bristol to give them hope.
I think we need more people who actually get out there and put their voice out and get heard.
Do you feel strongly about those things yourself?
I do, yes.
What stops you being there, then?
That's a really good question, and I think about that quite a lot, actually. Probably things like family and that sort of commitment. Maybe if I was a student, I'd be doing it.
Seen this?
What's that?
Theresa May has issued the thing about batting around plastic bullets and stuff like that. That's a declaration. That's a declaration of war against protesters and students, man. It's like, tomorrow? It's like she's almost condemned that demonstration to violence. Yeah, call it optimistic or whatever, but the days are numbered. That is a sign of a weak government. You know, if they've got to do that to try and keep the people under control, you know, it's. I'm sorry, I'm just a bit angry. You know what I mean?
Back in the 1980s, the last time there was a big upsurge of protest in Britain, things seemed pretty simple. It was all about the Thatcher government and getting rid of them. Now, things are much more complicated. This comes at the end of a year of very diffuse, diverse manifestations of anger. The question for Occupy is whether they can draw all those diffuse, diverse strands together and pull off something really, really interesting, which is turning this from a network of protest groups across a number of countries into something which feels on the ground in places like Bristol like the start of a mass movement.